uh, will not be until December 11th, and it'll be by Zoom, so we won't have a regular meeting in November, but we'll push it out to December 11th, and then have the next meeting after that in January. So, any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing not, then we'll go through introductions, and I'm going to try the same technique I've done the last two times. Hopefully it works in the hybrid setting, calling out each municipality and ask people to identify themselves when I do. So I'll start with Alburg Town. Anyone from Alburg Town? Okay. Berkshire, Enosburg Falls, Enosburg Town. Uh-oh.
You sure you got it for him?
Fairfax. Thank you. Fairfield.
Oh, Chuck is here.
Okay. Fletcher. Franklin.
Yvonne Mandarin.
Georgia.
Kirk Wade. Carl Rosenbush.
Grand Isle.
Barkley Morris.
Howard DeMars, Grand Isle via Zoom.
Thank you.
Hi, Peter.
Highgate.
Jack Pelkey.
We'll go back to Fairfax. Isle of Mont.
Sylvia Jensen via Zoom.
Montgomery. North Hero.
Andy Alling, Mike Curtis. Okay.
Richford. Sheldon. South Hero.
Bob Behrman.
Peter Zamore. St. Albans City. St. Albans Town. Swanton Town.
Nicole Draper, Town of Swanton, via Zoom.
Swanton Village.
Little Spear.
And Heidi Birch Valenta.
Is there anybody who hasn't introduced themselves?
Bakersfield, Linda McCall.
Oh.
Okay, Linda McCall from Bakersfield as well.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce the staff, Catherine?
Sure, I'm Catherine Dimitrick, Executive Director.
Dean, Stephanie Rainier.
Stephanie Roberts, Assistant Director.
So in addition to the regular committee reports, we've got three substantive items to discuss tonight. One is a spotlight on St. Albans Town. The second is a review and possible approval of a new public participation policy. And the third is to determine whether the Northern Lake Champlain Tactical Basin Plan is consistent with our regional plan. I think I have that right. Before we get into the first of these items, is there any public comment? Hearing none, then I guess we'll go with the spotlight on St. Albans Town.
Stand up.
No, but I don't think I'm gonna put the slide.
Okay.
So it stays. I'm
I
gonna.
guess that was both introductions, Sean Atkins. I like being in this room, like, not you. A friendly crowd. Oh, okay, so makes it. We can rush if you want. You go on.
Whatever.
Well, welcome to St. Albans, town. So from what I'm told, it's basically, I don't know, a spotlight, but I guess I consider it kind of more of a zoom in on what we're doing here in the town. I know over the last few years, case in point, like this building, our DPW building, are two of the biggest projects, in replacement buildings or updated buildings. But today, over the next 10 or so minutes, it's kind of, I'm thankful for the staff we have, I'll put it that way, because we're doing a lot across the board. Little things, big things, but consistently. I don't think we've ever been as busy as we are right now. From stormwater to other stuff, we'll touch upon that. So basically, we'll touch upon 4 or 5 big things and feel free to ask questions, because we're doing a lot. I'm sure we'll forget some of the things today, but yeah, it's exciting.
Before we go further, can the
Yeah.
folks on Zoom hear okay?
So,
I can, I know that, Peter.
Yes.
yes,
Okay, so I'll just kind of go over 3 major projects that the planning and zoning department is working on right now. First, that's up here on the screen is the transit oriented development master plan. This is a project we're doing with NRPC and CCRPC to study the growth areas of the town, which is exits 19 and exit 20 areas of the town, Route 7 North, the major commercial areas. And then exit 19 is a smaller commercial area, but also a major residential hub for the town. And it's looking at how future development can be higher density to support transit and is creating a smart growth kind of process for the town, so that as we grow, because we all know we need housing, that the growth within the town happens smartly and doesn't create the really bad planning word of sprawl, where we're just taking over field after field with 1 acre lots. This would be higher density, not super high density. Right, so beyond the master plan, the other thing that they'll do will give us some bylaw regulations that we can look at entering, putting into our bylaws or creating new ordinances or bylaws with. And then the last portion, I'm not super familiar with, but is like a transit oriented portion of it to talk about kind of research what it would take to get transit here to the town more.
Housing that would support.
Yeah, housing that would support transit. So that's ongoing. I think by the end of the year or beginning of next year, the master plan portion will be done. Then they'll work on the regulation portion and then move on to the transit. So
Also, kind of add my own kind of angle on this. I actually think this study's a little early for where we're at as a town and locality. But it's good. It's a great study. Stantec's doing a great job on it. But I think it's just a little bit, it's free, so we took it. That's kind of first and foremost, and it will be helpful, because when we do hit the points, growth where we're ready for this stuff, we'll already have a lot of stats, we'll already have some planning in place. Because as you can tell by our fun 5 points intersection right here, it hasn't been a lot of planning traditionally. To be honest, in the town, as an outsider, that's just my observation. And so this is very good, and again, even better because it was free for us, thanks to NRPC and
Yes.
CCRP. Oh, God, see, too many letters, the RPCs, but I think it's going to be very helpful in the next like 3 to 5 years. Right now, I think even some people are a little, if not confused, if not overwhelmed by it. Kind of what is going on here? What is this? But I think again, in a couple of years, it'll bear fruit that it's going to be very helpful for us.
And it's a nice exercise for the planners in the town to be able to explain planning techniques and processes. Well, yeah, well, and NRPC planners and the Stantec, consultants to explain these things to locals that have been here for forever and new people that don't understand planning and how it works and how it's long range and doesn't mean that these housing developments or these high-rise buildings, 4 stories or more are gonna happen overnight, but they are gonna happen, and making sure that we have the plan so that they, again, are done smart is super beneficial. So Dean, if you go to the next page for me. The next study that I'm working on is also very exciting to me. Is a village master plan. It should be the next whole page. Yeah, there we go. The St. Albans Bay Vision Plan. So the St. Albans Bay, where we are now, is a village designated as a village center. We received a municipal planning grant to do a master plan for this area. We're calling it a vision plan because it's the vision of what we want. The things we're going to be looking at, obviously what everyone is, or one of the main parts about the bay is the bay. So clean water is one of our main goals. Safe streets, we have 0 pedestrian sidewalks or network down here. And we have lots of walkers, lots of bike riders. So making sure, and then we have our 5 points corners of weird roads. And then you have Lake Road and Georgia Shore Road intersection, which is also very confusing to navigate. So kind of looking at all of those things and then understanding how to do development down here so that it doesn't change the character of the bay. Whether that be smaller commercial development or infill residential or larger residential developments towards the northern portion of the village or just outside the village area. And then the last thing is placemaking. I think everyone that lives down here, probably no one in this room, we really talked to them Monday night, but they're very proud of the bay and the village center down here. But you don't know, you're coming down Lake Road and you just see a couple houses. There's a nice boys and a farm. You don't know where you are if you're not from St. Albans. So understanding signage, getting people to understand that this is a neighborhood, this is a community, and to get people to come to the park, doing more things like the park and pop-up events and things like that. So that master plan is ongoing right now.
Segue on that, actually.
Go right ahead.
I think the biggest point of emphasis from like where we're coming from is to recognize that this is our crown jewel. St. Albans Bay is the crown jewel of St. Albans town. Pretty much everything else is, yeah,
Great.
kind of like, right, well, there's the cities of downtown and all that, but then the rest of it's residential. St. Albans Bay is the one thing that truly makes us unique. So we're being very careful, very intentional with how we go about this in the future. And back to the clean water thing, that's another part of well, arguably the biggest project is extending the water sewer down into the bay. So it's again keeping everything within character, but we can't really. We want to emphasize this crown jewel. We don't want to be anything that we're not. Everything else, I think the growth of the rest of the town, I think will happen mostly organically over the next few years, depending on all the fun Act 250 tier system stuff. But this is our one most, in my opinion, most unique asset that we have. So that's, and to do that, to extend water sewer down here will also help clean up the lake, which thank you MS for. We're trying to do across the board. It costs a lot of money, but a big part of that, in my opinion, is to get water sewer to the homes down here. And to really boost that. I think it'll really make us our own. Like I've seen old pictures, I've read about stories, I've even paintings before pictures were a thing of what the bay used to be like. And what I think is very charming is the local people in the bay still have the same pride as if they lived back then. And I think that's very unique. And I'd like to expand upon that and really capitalize on that. So that's kind of what we're really zooming in on as a town. I'll get off my soapbox now. Yeah.
Water's here.
Water.
So this is a study we're doing with SE Group. We've done quite a bit of public outreach. We're doing beyond farmers markets, meetings and public meetings here in this building, we're doing online surveys to try and reach a wider population of people. On those surveys, we ask where they're from. So we're understanding where that knowledge or information is coming from, whether they're local to this area, in the city, in the county, outside of the county, and just know of the area for one reason or another.
Also, SE group, at least I'll be honest about my review of it. The principal has a house on.
Yes.
So it's like, it was when I saw that we had all the likely characters and firms that applied, but that was the only one that had somebody that lived here at least half the year or whatever. He's in Vermont, but he has a camp out in Hackaway, so he's aware of it. Is.
First-hand knowledge.
Yes, yeah, he wants to see it, continue to be what it is, but also expand it.
And we do have a draft plan right now for this that I can send out via email, and you guys can also take the survey for us, which would be really awesome. To look at kind of where we are currently with our goals, and then implementation projects that could possibly go along with addressing those goals.
Is it on your website?
It is on our website. As of this morning.
Our website works, our emails don't.
Emails. Right, I won't be able to
Until
email
11
until
o'clock tonight.
9.
Side.
And then the last one that I'm gonna talk about, this one specific, this sheet here is specifically about Route 7 North, but what I would like to touch on briefly is all of our bicycle and sidewalk projects that we have going on. So the town of St. Albans built a 1,200 linear foot sidewalk this summer on South Main Street. I'm so insanely proud of it.
I've never been more excited about a sign.
I've never, haven't.
In my whole
but-
career, I haven't.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
It is a great sidewalk. It was being used before it was finished. I see mothers with strollers and kids on bicycles, and I'm getting goosebumps. I'm really excited about it. And to see that the select board is supportive of pedestrian projects is really hopeful. So we're really moving forward on a lot of other projects, hopefully. We just finished a project or a plan for a health path, which would go from Collins Pearly all the way up to the rail trail, eventually through hopefully 3 or 4 phases. We are doing this study here for Route 7 North. This is a shared use path study. So it would, and we're doing it in conjunction with the city, where we're working to continue the sidewalk from where it ends in the city, because it doesn't go all the way to the city town line. So continuing the sidewalk and then addressing the needs of pedestrians, whether that be walkers or bicyclists, from that point all the way up to the Swanton town line, most importantly Walmart, because that's where people are going to shop, that's where they're riding their bikes to, and riding back with the bags of groceries and Halloween costumes and all those kinds of things. So that study, we did a livability study in 2019, and it determined we needed to do a study to find the location of where it should be. So that's where we are now, is a scoping study to find the best location of where it should go, how it should be built, how wide it should be it be bike lanes and a sidewalk, or a shared use path totally all the way down? Should it be right on the roadway or off the roadway a little bit? That's kind of what they're working on now. That project, again, will be ongoing through the winter, and hopefully have some, or late winter, early spring, have some public meetings, and so have some things that we can show you. And then beyond that, the Planning Commission, St. Albans Town Planning Commission, is working on updating our sidewalk and bicycle master plan. I think that's what it's titled at this point. And what they want to really do, besides hire a consultant just to redo the whole thing, we're just going to look at our priorities list and our list of streets, every single street we have, and look at it community wide. So look at it with the connection with the city's sidewalks and with the rail trail and any other recreation path that it would intersect, or a sidewalk could take a large group of people, a large neighborhood or a housing development, and connect it to some sort of pedestrian network. And stormwater.
I'm actually gonna go back and preach upon the sidewalk stuff. So kind of the select board brought me in because of my background with projects and economic development, community development. So I came here, I was basically like, all right, you guys ready to do like stuff? And I think that she's been here longer than me, but what I've encountered in the last year and a half is a lot of, why are we spending money on X? But then why are we doing studies on X? And then it's like, well, because all this intertwines, like all that stuff. We don't get funding without studies, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of been like a slow burn of education to the community. And it kind of been like, trying not to blame anything on the past, or being like, this is how it works, it's just now we're putting the pieces into place to do it. And I've been very happy with the community's response to the sidewalk. I would say loosely, like 90% positive. Which that number means nothing, but feedback on the sidewalk. I think that's been a huge win for us, for the select board. They're excited to do more. This is the first sidewalk we've ever done.
Right.
It's not
minus
like a 30
30
foot stretch on Huntington Street. So it's one of those things where I think the more people see stuff happen, it catches on, it's exciting. We're not throwing darts at the board. This is all very intentional, concerted effort to kind of bring us forward. So again, I'm on my soapbox a lot tonight. And now I'm ending with my least favorite stuff, the stormwater. It's the word I think I mutter in my sleep at night. But it's very important. And the state of Vermont is designated as MS4, as I'm sure you guys know. Tanglewood's at least 30 years in the making. I'm pretty proud to say that we're doing it. It's already out to bid. If not, they didn't sink in. They didn't dig in the ground today. It'll be tomorrow. So that's a long time coming. Clyde Allen will be out to bid soon, I guess is all I can say. So those are two big things. The community will finally see us doing stuff on that point. It's, if you can't tell, I'm tired of talking about it. It's still stuff we're doing right now. And even though it's stormwater, I consider it an important part of infrastructure. I don't think the general community thinks that in Vermont yet, but we'll get there. When you have a wet basement, they will say, yeah, you know what, maybe this is infrastructure. So we're doing baby steps. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you for the pizza. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I have a comment. If I may.
Yes, you may.
When you first started, you mentioned that you thought this study was a little premature, but it sounds to me like the timing was perfect. I know St. Albans is considerably larger than Grand Isle, but our community here is changing quite a lot. And when you do so, there's always going to be some pushback from the long-term residents. There's going to be comments from all parties. And this process is essential. You need to tell them to make these changes go in a direction that we can best live with. Because if you're going to grow, and your area has grown immensely, and I think, some of these things you'll need to implement fairly soon. But, it's a long-term thing. But including the public, like we're going to touch on later here in our meeting, is essential to this whole process to help them understand and to be, to feel part of it, even when they don't agree. I think
I agree with that.
listening to these people will be super important to you going forward. So good luck to you on that, sir.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree with everything you just said. And if anything that we all know in this room is that we get something done in 2 or 3 years, that is pretty quick. Or anywhere in what we do. I should have said, I think it's too early for a lot of the public, because they hear, all right, we need as much housing in the area to support public transportation. That's a whole lot of questions, kind of hot button issues that come as a result of that. That's kind of what I meant on that point.
I haven't gone through this process and been part of the planning commission for some years. I understand exactly, but I think, the sooner the discussion starts, I think the better off you'll be. But I do understand and commiserate with what you're going through, because, you get a lot of people that jump right to conclusions. They don't want this change. You need to tell them, it's not going to happen right now, but in the future, it's going to. What direction do we want to take,
Oh, I agree. It's like my favorite acronym is the cousin of NIMBY is CAVES. Well, citizens against virtually everything. So a lot of them.
Indeed.
You need to show them numbers and kind of show them
right
with them.
That's a big part of our role. So Yeah, sounds like you've got it. You'll be fine. Good luck.
Take that, good luck.
Yeah, Bob?
Couple of things. First off, I've been on the board for probably too long now, but for a few years. And part of project plan review and discussions about sidewalk, specifically on Franklin Park West and leading up to. It's exciting to see you guys developing that plan that regional planning has been trying to convince some of your previous board members for the good thing we did. So I think that's great news to see you really working on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hopefully. For a little bit of perspective to another observation is, well, from South Arrows, we're in the islands, and we're all from towns, a lot of us are around the lake. St. Albans town is probably the one that has the most physical village on the lake out of all of us, except for maybe everybody else in the village is back in.
Yeah.
So again, I'm excited to see you work on the plan, how you develop that village and take advantage of what that means to our area.
Yeah.
You definitely need to look at the proposed plan because it is, it's really cool, the graphics and things that we have. Yeah, of really accentuating the love for the lake, and the pier and things like that. It's really cool to look at.
Yeah.
As a planner.
But we can't do a whole lot until we get water sewer. That's the biggest obvious thing.
I've been involved.
Yeah, because we have the exemption right now, but the exemption means jack until we have water sewer. So it's still good. I'll take it. Don't take it away, but
The other
yeah.
piece I was trying to feel of is out of your town population, I don't remember what the population of the town is.
6,500.
Hmm.
6,500, 7,000. Depends on what.
So what percentage that are in the quote unquote village bay area? in
Very
comparison to-
small.
15%.
We have 60 homes down here,
Yeah. So there's more.
Trying to define that as your.
just in the
core.
village center is 60
Yeah.
homes.
Yeah.
So trying to define that as your core, or probably put your 70% of the rest of town rarely come down or even think of it.
Well, we're trying to get them to come more, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the Bay Park is awesome, and if we
Yeah.
could. Do more things and, yeah.
Because they circle St. Albans, so a lot of people think of St. Albans as part of your downtown.
Mhm.
Right, absolutely.
I wish we could use it as our downtown. for
We try.
information reasons.
Yeah. And we are in the process also of renovating, designing the stone house. So I don't know how I left that part out. Yeah.
You mentioned trying to get more people. To use the park. And our last in-person meeting, we did it at the park and there was so much going on there. We could barely find the parking space.
Yeah.
Great.
It obviously attracts a lot.
Oh, it does, yeah. And we're. All I can say is we're working to make it, to do even more. Just I can leave it at that, fumble through that one, yeah.
One of the things you talked about is clean water today, which is going to be very important, and you talked about stormwater.
Yeah.
Which I agree will help to get the people hooked up here. But then it's all going to go up to the waste treatment plant and into the Stevens Brook.
Yeah.
And then right back into the bay.
Right.
Cleaner.
We hope.
Yeah.
Having lived on the Cisco Bay,
Mhm.
and I know what it's like down here in the summertime too.
Yeah.
That's a bit of that's a challenge. Have you
Mhm.
guys talked about that?
We have, yeah, we've met with the state already and we've met with the city, there's a lot going on right now behind the scenes.
Okay.
It's a big project.
Yep.
Yeah.
It'll be the single.
Yes,
biggest
they might
project.
have to upgrade or, their capacity.
The water has capacity, the wastewater is
Yeah, tricky.
is the tougher task.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
staff.
Okay.
We did check. Yeah, take more pizza.
I see Greta's here and perhaps other staff members are here too. You want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure, I'll start. Luke Slamba, and I'm serving here as an AmeriCorps list for about the past year, and I'll be staying on as a regional planner starting next week. So super excited to be working on all the fun stuff that'll be happening over the next year.
I'm Cliff Jenkins. I'm the new water project manager. I just started here about 3 weeks ago, so happy to be in Vermont.
Great.
I'm Laura Brown.
Hi, everyone. Greta Brunswick, senior planner. You all know me. And I'll pass it on to, we already did it. You already did it. Yeah, we're all good. You're all good.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next item, which are minutes.
That's how we lure them in.
I like the way you got to warm it up. That's.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
It's like this all the time.
So we told him. Yeah.
So you've all received the draft minutes in your packets. Are there any comments, suggestions here? I see that Elizabeth Nance isn't here, so we won't get the usual fly specking, but does anyone else have anything they want to add or change?
I move approval of minutes.
Second? Second, okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Second.
Abstention, okay, one abstention. So next we'll go through the commission reports. The written reports are in the book, and so we'll just go around and see if anyone has additional comments they want to make on what they've done for the last month. And Kirk, finance operations, anything more?
We did not meet. We will be meeting over the next few months on some progress.
I'll note that the field work for the audit was complete 2 weeks ago, and so we'll be looking forward to the draft audit.
And we're certainly hoping that we'll see the draft by January.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's intended we'll have a draft sometime in December, and the auditor has offered reviewing it again to our next finance committee meeting. So
Great.
it needs to make it January 6th, or whatever date that is.
So they aren't quite as far behind as we thought they might be.
Correct.
Correct.
Next is personnel, Bob.
Personnel didn't meet, and all the stuff I was gonna say, the staff just did, so.
Executive committee met and we primarily went over the public participation plan that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. Project review.
Harold let me know that if he was able to make it, it would be very late, but the report is in the packet and no board action is required.
Transportation Advisory Committee. Harold too. No one else here to talk about it.
The last committee meeting revolved around rail, mostly rail and rail trail. So we had an update from AOT to give us a little bit of information about the upcoming Vermont Rail Plan, which has the updates have started. First public meeting was held last week. And then we also had a pretty in-depth update of rail trail projects, of which there are quite a few going on in the region.
Great. Brownfields Committee.
Microphone on top of it. You should. You know that happened. use this one. We did not meet in October. We're planning on meeting November 18th.
Regional Plan and Policy Committee, Laurie.
We did not meet, we're aiming, get ready to figure out our future on November 13th.
A lot on your plate too. Vermont Economic Progress Council, Barbara.
There was a meeting today that I did not attend, a retreat down in Bolton. There hasn't been anything that would be a project for our region.
Green Mountain Transit, Bob. Catherine.
So the board has been meeting twice a month all fall, so we have a lot on our plate. Primarily, the last two meetings, we were focused on the urban service cuts that need to be made in order to meet the budget shortfall that are projected for FY 26, 7, and 28. And then we started discussions of a study to examine whether the rural transit service provided by GMT, so that includes our two counties, should be transferred to another provider to save costs. And so that is an ongoing initiative that's being examined and talked about. We also started talking about the next round of urban service cuts that will need to happen, which will involve potentially a combination of the St. Albans link and the Milton commuters. So that's actually kind of a good thing if you think about it, because then folks in Milton will be able to now travel north to St. Albans, which they can't do now. So there's some potential upsides of what started out as a cost saving exercise in that regard. Nathan?
Probably other piece of that, we may actually be able to get all the way from Albert to Burlington and back again. Right,
Back.
if you get to Burlington, you get back.
Right,
So
part of
part
the
of it-
service shifts, yeah. They're looking at potential changes to the schedule. Bob was noting that would actually enable you to get home in the afternoon if you were to leave Richmond or Albert and travel to Burlington. You might now actually be able to get home in the afternoon.
That's the only thing I saw, was that, no.
Yeah.
Okay, Healthy Roots Advisory Committee.
Marietta couldn't make it tonight. Did the Healthy Roots Advisory Committee meet?
They did meet. We met last week and things seem to be going well with the transfer of the program to CBOEO. And this over, I think one of the major focuses of Healthy Roots staff is an update to the farm map for a reprint this spring. Yeah, I think that's it.
And I'll just note that Bethany's been working diligently to try to find a way to transfer our tangible assets, our truck, our refrigerated trailer, and the walk-in cooler that we purchased for Healthy Roots through an EDA grant. And we've worked with them and they've tried many different routes, none of which enable us to totally give up ownership. So it looks like we will need to retain ownership of those tangible assets and we'll lease them to CBOEO for $1 or whatever and do a lease agreement. And so we'll just need to carry those on our financial books until the depreciation is complete. And then we'll be able to do a disposal of the items and fully transfer them to CBOEO. So just so you know, in case when you see the audit, you'll see it's still listed as an asset and you wonder why we might still have them.
Okay, and finally, the Northwest Vermont Regional Foundation. Kirk, anything?
Nothing to report, other than we're probably going to have a meeting sometime soon.
And then there are written reports describing a ton of activity on the staff level. Is there anything that the staff wants to say to supplement their reports?
Not
Gotcha.
just a report, but was there a community investment board update on the agenda? And just to note that Heidi received a neighborhood designation at this month's meeting. So that's the first neighborhood designation. Designated neighborhood area in VA. Did I get that again? Neighborhood designation area.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. In case you didn't hear it online, Greta was just letting folks know that Highgate received a neighborhood designation area designation. It's kind of a funny thing, but do you want to take a moment development area. Do you want to take a moment to just say what that means for Highgate? Because it's pretty exciting. It is the first one in our region to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, so what it means is that, so that the neighborhood development area in Highgate right now covers the area that is currently their designated village center. All communities with designated village centers have a 1/4 mile planning area that surrounds it, and that is generally the area that they are eligible to seek designation for a neighborhood area. And what it does is provide additional benefits for housing development, primarily permitting relief through Act 250. And I think land gains tax and a few other grant incentives similar to the designated village center program. So it's really great for the town of Highgate and will help further housing development on their village core property, which they're currently working on, as well as that community wastewater project.
Great. Any other staff comments? Okay, I have to say that there's a lot there in the staff reports, and it's very helpful to be able to see all you're doing, and you folks are very busy. Thank you very much for all you do.
And I will just add that in terms of staff reports, I noted in the email, but I think it's important to just reiterate that we did send out the annual reports to all of your towns. And in it is a summary of the work that we did in your community last year. And I'll be doing some select board meetings over the next few months to just touch it base with a few towns. I'm trying to do, about a third every year. And if you would like me to come to your town, please let me know. And if I do come to your town on my own initiative, I will let you know so that I'll be there.
Great. Now we're on to considering the public participation policy. And Catherine, I guess you'll handle that one.
Sure. So I put a memo in the packet that describes a little bit of the background for why this was put together and why this is before you tonight. Basically, there's several reasons for why we would consider the public participation policy. The first that started this off is that we're required to, under our clean water service provider contract, have a public participation policy. And that was really the genesis of beginning to put together this overall policy. And several of the staff here tonight worked on it, including you and Dean, and then Barry, who's not here tonight, also worked on it. And it started with a small group of folks from the Clean Water Service Provider Basin Water Quality Council, so some volunteers working with our staff. And then it grew into this larger public participation policy because our thinking is that it really continues to follow with our equity work that we've done over the past few years to really make sure all of our efforts are equitable and broad and engage people whenever it makes sense, and when their feedback is valuable to us so that we can reasonably ask for their time and participation. And so this really will lay out for staff, for board, for the committees that we have, the approaches that you should be taking to public participation, whether it's on an ongoing basis or for a particular one-off project. So I think it's a really great public policy that they put together. We did send it out to all of our different committees and volunteers, put a newsletter article in and sought public comment. We did get a few comments and we incorporated changes based on that feedback, and the executive committee reviewed it a couple of times as well. No, Luke or Dean, if you want that.
So we have that before you, and the question is there a sentiment to approve this policy? And are there any, before we do so, consider approval, are there any comments on it?
Peter,
Yeah.
I have a question. Do we have a budget for this? And is there a timeline as far as trying to implement the document in its entirety?
So those are two great questions. We don't have in our budget a public participation line item expense, but those expenses and the cost, mostly staff time, advertising associated with that are typically built in on a project by project basis. So when we were thinking about the regional plan update that we have to do, when we estimate how many staff hours it will take and how much additional expenses that will take, we'll consider public participation as part of that. We do have some specific line item budgets related to public outreach and engagement, like we just signed up for a front porch forum access, so you probably noticed that we're starting to see 2 posts a month from us, and we're using that as just an ongoing outreach tool. So we do have some specific budget items like that. Most of the time, however, they're built into a specific project, a specific grant, or a specific initiative. In terms of timeline, I would say that it's going to be an ongoing timeline. Our goal is to use the policy to really put some more structure into the public participation that we already do. So much of what you see in this policy are things that we may already do as part of projects or initiatives, and so they might seem familiar to you. But what this policy will do is really set a clear framework and a clear expectation for all of you as board members, for members of the public, and for the staff, so that we can have some consistency in how we do that and some clear expectations up front.
Thank you. I love the front porch forum bit, by the way, so.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
In fact, I really do like the document. And, no, I'm just curious as to how some of this will go, and thank you for your time answering the questions.
Yeah, thanks for great questions.
And Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, but the other regional planning commissions are undertaking the same type of effort.
Some regional planning commissions already have one, and others are working on one. I think, you know, there was a change in statute to really tie our public engagement work to equitable engagement, and also tie it to the environmental justice law, which does, I think, require us to be more thoughtful and more methodical about how we do our public engagement.
So there are a lot of details there, but it also, I have to say, having reviewed it, in terms of the executive committee, it reflects a lot of work that's gone into this. So any further comments before we consider adopting it?
I would like to comment that the executive committee did review it in detail and made a recommendation to pass it on to the full board for ratification.
Thank you. With that, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the new public engagement document and include it in our plan, in the regional plan.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Great. Okay, now we're going to come to the last substantive area, which is to consider whether the Northern Lake Champlain tactical basin plan is consistent with our regional plan. Steve, you're going to take that?
I am going to take that, and if you allow me, I'm going to share some slides. And I'm already eating into the 10 minutes that I promised Catherine that I would live within.
They haven't yet, don't worry.
Oh, I have a clock running here, so I just need to keep myself on task. But as I do that, I was going to also say, first of all, thanks to Nora, who's helped with this task. I also wanted to just express pleasure at keeping alive the mic passing of talk show host Phil Donahue that we've seen tonight, keeping that alive. For the younger folks, they have no idea who I'm talking about. But they should. Yeah, Wikipedia. And then I was also going to just say that this is not the first time that the Regional Planning Commission has done this procedure. the RPC Board of Commissioners has weighed in on the conformance of these things called tactical basin plans many times before. I didn't bother to go count the specific number, but this is the third time in about 3 years. So some of you may recall this procedure before. The process this time is somewhat compressed. I will say the public comment period ends tomorrow. And by public comment period, I'm meaning the period of time during which, when comments are made, there's an official public response or an official DEC or Agency of Natural Resources response. Sometimes we've also had presentations on the plan. That hasn't happened this year. But as I explain, or will explain in a minute, the specific duties of the commission are fairly narrow. But really what we're here for, to talk about assessing the conformance of the the tactical basin plan with the regional planning. And there is a specific section of law that this comes from. But I thought it was also going to be useful to explain, as I slide this out of the way, what's the purpose of tactical basin planning, first of all? The tactical basin plans aim to protect and restore the quality of surface waters in Vermont. We heard a lot about water quality earlier tonight. By supporting the achievement of water quality standards. And the way water quality law works is it's essentially this process of setting standards and determining whether or not the waters with those standards meet the standards. And if they don't, then you have to take some action. They provide a guide to the Agency of Natural Resources and the partners, because there are a lot of partners involved, to prioritize projects. So it's protecting the best and restoring the rest, and that's stolen. That's why I have credit from DEC on that slide. Just to put this in a little bit of a geographic context, there are 15 of these basins across the state. People know what river basins are, I suspect. And the specific role of the Regional Planning Commission, as I was saying earlier, it's in this section of statute, and basically the secretary, in consultation with the Regional Planning Commission, is preparing this plan. So the secretary, through their staff, is working with groups like the Regional Planning Commissions to develop this plan, and the measuring stick that we use is our regional plan. I'll say that also there are 2 regional planning commissions that have territory within this basin, and the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission is the other one. Their commission has already had this activity, and they have put their stamp of approval. And then there's also this part in the law about the secretary working with the regional planning commissions on the prioritization of projects and needs within the basin. And hopefully everybody had a chance at least to crack the outside of the memo that was sent. I realized there was a lot of stuff in that, but just to deal with this at a high level, this tactical basin plan addresses areas, topics, what are called sectors. There's an agriculture sector. There's a roads developed area sector. There's a stormwater sector. There's a forestry sector, and there's a rivers sector. And it has essentially policies for each of those. And as I said, it's wrapped around this law, which is essentially establishing standards for water bodies. And once it gets a classification, we're assessing whether or not it meets that classification. And then what do we do if they don't? I'm zeroing in the slides a little bit because it may not have been apparent, probably wasn't apparent from the many pages that we gave you. It's this idea of priorities for restoration. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. The way that we describe this is there are designations of impaired waters or altered waters. And then there's a lot that has to do with something called the total maximum daily load. Now, how's that for a heading for a topic? Well, we usually call it the TMDL. The TMDL is essentially the study that was done several years ago that sets the budget. How much phosphorus can bodies of water like Lake Champlain accommodate? And if there's too much phosphorus in it, then it helps us set the goals for reducing the amount of phosphorus. So a lot of my days are spent working on trying to figure out projects that will in theory reduce that amount of phosphorus. I just have a couple of quick slides that I'm showing you that you probably can't see from your seats, but if you pull down the document, you can see that in these different areas or sectors, there's data. There's data that you can use to create the maps to show the conditions, and there's data for rivers, there's data for lakes, and so on. And I don't think I will try to get into the weeds too much because this is a long document. There's a lot of detail in it. And essentially, we're looking at it in its totality. I mentioned the TMDL. Again, there's a lot of data. And when you look at that data, you can see things like trends. The left-hand side of this slide is showing basically the percent of the TMDL target that has been achieved going through time. So basically, you can see aligned, at least the green line going up, but there are some dips. And so basically, a lot of the work we do is to try to promote projects. We collect data about those projects, and we use that to try to monitor our progress. The TMDL was written to basically look at the time period between 2016 and 2036. So all of these targets are set up with the idea of hitting a particular number in 2036. So if you cracked open the document, you can see for specific areas and sectors where things stand. So I'm well into my 10 minutes, but I'm gonna see. Okay, yes. So we are heading to the home stretch. There are policy areas. There are those four or five focus areas. There's a set of strategies in chapter 4. There's a big implementation table that is the heart of chapter 5. And that's what we were drilling down into when we prepared the memo. The memo was trying to get across the idea that if you look at a sector and you look at the tactical basin plan and you look at the regional plan tends to deal with things at a very high level, and the tactical basin plan has complementary policies that are at a more specific level. And you can find that across the board, basically in agriculture, in stormwater, and roads, and wastewater, and rivers, and lakes and water and forests. I will say, Harold or someone had asked about the budget or the schedule. This implementation table that is the heart of chapter 5 is essentially the work plan. So these are 5-year documents. So it's a 5-year schedule to do a set of tasks, and it's organized by the sectors and who is or where is that sector or that particular issue most applicable. So there are towns or areas, so we can look at that table and find towns in our region, or you can find the Regional Planning Commission specifically identified as a partner to work on that particular topic. So we've prepared the memo that gets into the details. We have found that there's areas of overlap, and we find essentially that the policies in the tactical basin plan advance the regional plan. We presented the text from the regional plan and the text from the basin plan, so hopefully people could do side by side. We have more slides, but I think that the main concept has gotten across. If there are specific questions, I will try to answer them. I also want to again acknowledge Nora for her participation in this. But we had at the top of the memo transmitting things had indicated that our recommendation to the board is that you find that the tactical basin plan is in conformance, and that you find that the agency has been working with us in these efforts. It has been done sometimes in the past where additional comments have been added to the memo that has gone to the agency, but we see our task as really zeroing in on those 2 statutory requirements. But if someone on the board has seen something in the plan that really catches their attention, then it may be something that warrants a specific mention in the memo that would go to DEC.
Comments or questions? Quite a tour de force.
Yeah, I just have one question.
Yeah.
To Howard DeMars Grand Isle. My question is there a link somewhere? I didn't see one. If we have a further question for you about something.
Harold,
If I want to
to
get,
question.
A link to the tactical plan?
To the tactical basin plan, can you get in
Yeah.
touch with,
Yes.
these people?
So
Actually, in the memo, they sent us something.
yeah, it is in the memo.
Okay,
I can,
I'll go back through and find it.
It's
I just
right,
thought,
It's beginning.
yeah,
right
it's
above the map.
right above the maps.
okay, great, thank you. I just had a question that I don't think is probably quite germane to NRPC per se, so, yeah, you know, I'd maybe like to see if it's addressed at all. So, thank you very much for that.
Other comments, questions?
Just a comment, it looks like a very thorough review, so thank you.
Yeah, I will say that the side-by-side comparison of the tactical basin plan with the regional plan is really helpful. That's awesome. Great job.
I think it also should be noted that Dean was almost to the second at his 10 minutes. When the alarm went off, he only had half his sentence left.
With that, is there a motion to determine that the Northern Lake Champlain Tactical Basin Plan is in conformance with the NRCP Regional Plan? Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Congratulations.
We also need a motion, a second.
Okay, I don't have that. What is it?
So the
Oh,
second-
yes.
So I make a
Yeah.
motion that we find that the Department of Environmental Conservation is closely with NRPC prioritizing water quality improvement projects within the region as required by 10 USA 1253 D3.
Is there a second?
That's there.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Thanks for keeping me honest, Kirk. Okay, now we're down to our last item, which are commissioner announcements. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Dean and Catherine and the commission for putting together that panel on the 3-acre rule. Unfortunately, it was poorly attended by especially Georgia, and I was one of the people that had pushed to have such a thing. But anyway, be that as it may, the only thing I'd like to add to that, if there's any possible way we could look at some way to fund a specialist in how people and municipalities can work together to implement the 3-acre rule. That's still elusive. You know, we mainly talked about the 3-acre rule at the get together, history of it, that sort of thing. But how to actually accomplish the objective is still elusive to people. I still have phone calls of what can we do to come into conformance or do something, especially these developments that don't have homeowners association. And so I was thinking, I think it was the man or the gentleman from either Williston or Winooski, who that's his job, for that particular municipality. But I thought the region possibly could put together funding mechanism or an individual to work with some of the towns, the smaller towns that don't have that infrastructure to do. That's really what we need to move this forward. If the idea is to move it forward to some extent, because of the lack of enthusiasm in many areas, maybe it isn't moving forward. But all I'm saying is people are concerned, and the ultimate hammer, of course, would be, let's say, an effect on title insurance in the future. And I don't think anybody wants to tell homeowners that, but that's really the final hammer to get this done. But I think we really need to work proactively to allow these communities and developments to do something about the 3-acre rule. Thank you.
Very quickly, three things. The tactical basin plan, some of you might have noticed, does include language on the need to help educate communities and residents about the 3-acre permit. So the document that you've just essentially endorsed does address it. Nora has expressed some interest in working with me and possibly others. There's a grant opportunity that will close in December that seems like a good subject or good place to go to pursue this subject. And then the last thing is we also have an intern with us for the fall semester, and she is digging into the 3-acre question, trying to compile some information from DEC, make some maps and things like that. So it is something we're actively working on.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner announcements?
I just wanted to bring up, I've been hearing in the news some things about the difficulty, especially the flooded towns have been having dealing with FEMA, et cetera. And it sounds like there's kind of a groundswell about more structured county government. And I'm wondering how that's going to affect the NRPCs. Whether they're gonna, is this something that's going to blow up in Montpelier this winter, or is this more work that's going to come to the RPC?
So it will definitely be a topic of conversation this year in the State House. I don't know if it will lead to any action this year. There is a county and regional governance study committee that was established last year that has a 2-year timeframe in which they're supposed to work. The regional planning commission we do compete on the advisory committee to that effort. So my colleagues in other regions have been participating in those meetings and sharing information. Most everyone I talk to about this matter sees the regional planning commissions as the place to go to build on any sort of regional governance, as opposed to creating something new. So yes, it could mean in the future that there would be more work for the regional planning commissions. It also could mean, which would be a much longer discussion for another night, but there's another model of regional governance called a council of governments, which is pretty common in other states, especially those without county government. And that those are kind of county light in that they don't have taxing authority, but they have the ability to do municipal activities at the regional level. So there are different authorization but so it's basically an expanded version of a regional planning commission with some additional authorized duties in a simpler way. So right now, if we serve as zoning administrator for a couple towns, we have to have this intermunicipal agreement, and there's a whole process, and the council of government model simplifies that. So that's one moment.
Just, I figured that you were aware of it, but I was curious if you had any idea where it is.
Yeah, I think it's going to something, but I just don't know what. I think there's a real recognition that our communities are being asked to do too much. And that it's just, the state relies on communities to do a lot of work to achieve statewide goals without always providing the tools and the budget to get that work done. So I think that tension is really reaching a crisis point for especially some of our smaller communities and even the larger ones, because you have to take on more.
I think there's, that description is a demonstration that there's very little that affects us that Catherine isn't fully aware of. Any other comments or announcements, commissioner announcements? Hearing not, motion to adjourn? Second? In favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Take a sticker home. There's stickers on the back. I forgot to mention that, Barry.